We have just received reports of loud explosions in Riyadh. That's where our Nick Robertson is. Nick, update us with the latest information from there. What are you seeing?
Yes, Isa. It's important to mention that this is the first time foreign ministers from across the Gulf are meeting in person. They have been holding teleconferences, but now they are meeting in Riyadh. Tonight is exceptional, not only because of the meeting, but because they are in the same building as we are. A few minutes ago, we heard alarms going off, warning about possible incoming missiles and then explosions. And when I walked out the door here, I could see a large piece of something falling toward the ground. It's not clear whether it was a missile or an interceptor. And I need to emphasize again, this is unusual in Riyadh. We haven't seen this in Riyadh since the war began. Drones have been intercepted before. A few hours ago, the sirens went off again. The Ministry of Defense said that 4 ballistic missiles were intercepted over Riyadh. Debris fell over the city, but there was no structural damage or injuries. We witnessed the interceptors taking off from the city center, and we could hear the explosions from the interceptions or the missiles falling. It's not clear. Once again, it's important to emphasize this is something exceptional in Riyadh, so having these Iranian ballistic missile attacks in the capital, Riyadh, while the foreign ministers of so many countries, I was talking to the foreign minister of Turkey, so as he was coming in a few minutes ago, there are so many foreign ministers here. It seems unusual to us that Iran chose this target. Right when this high-level in-person meeting is taking place, the first of its kind, Isa.
Let's look at the tensions between the US, Israel, and Iran and their regional impacts. During the funeral of the assassinated security chief, Ali Larijani, Israel claims it also killed the Iranian intelligence minister during a nighttime bombing in the capital, Tehran. The death of Esmail Khatib was announced by the Israeli defense minister. Iran has not yet confirmed this. A high-ranking Israeli official believes that Israel's campaign of targeted assassinations is creating chaos in the Iranian regime and will cause more instability. Iran promises revenge and blames the US for punitive attacks against Gulf neighbors, with other countries involved in the conflict. Australia says that an Iranian projectile hit an air base it uses in the United Arab Emirates.
There was an Iranian projectile that hit near that base. I would like to confirm that no member of the Australian team was injured or hurt, and everyone is absolutely safe and protected at this moment. There was minor damage to a housing block and a medical facility due to a small fire, which was caused as a result of this projectile directly hitting a road that leads to that base.
Well, Saudi Arabia is gathering Arab and Islamic ministers for discussions on security. Nick Robertson is in Riyadh, while Oren Lieberman brings the reaction from Jerusalem. I want to start with you, Nick. Critical times as this region continues to be attacked by what it describes as unprovoked and reckless Iranian attacks. And now, this language is enshrined in international law. What do we expect from these meetings in Saudi Arabia?
Yes, Beck, I think it's quite significant that this meeting of foreign ministers is taking place in person. It took more than 2 weeks of war to reach this moment. There have been many video conferences between the GCC and other Arab and regional leaders, but the fact that they are meeting in person now is very significant. This will make a difference. The conversation isn't clear, but bringing people together around a table often helps to find common ground. And I think that's what we're going to hear, a common and unified position being maintained, as we've already heard, and perhaps even more consolidated. Saudi Arabia, of course, is significant because I think it's generally considered that the countries here in the GCC at least are united. And unless Saudi Arabia changes its position and becomes the first to take an escalatory stance, let's put it that way, it's unlikely that the other countries will act alone given its importance. And of course, in practice, on a practical level, the airports here in Saudi Arabia have hardly been affected. So for some of these Gulf countries, it's easier in this context for Saudi Arabia to host But Saudi Arabia is really emerging now as a central player. This unity I've been talking about, the unity of position that has denounced Iran for violating international humanitarian law. Also denouncing when it targets oil facilities and civilian infrastructure. We'll probably hear more about this, and I think what everyone is eager to hear is how these countries interpret President Trump's ultimate goal. How do they interpret his calls to end the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, which is, of course, of vital interest? But in that time, they made it very clear, and maybe we'll hear this again today, that these countries did not want to get involved in the war. They fear that it could get out of control and that things could get worse. In the last hour, Iran has threatened to intensify attacks against oil facilities, including the Saudi Red Sea, which would be a significant escalation. If it happens, then I think it's about staying calm, holding your position, and unity is the message that I believe will emerge here. Becky, yes.
But what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz, of course, has a huge impact on the global economy and, frankly, whether Europeans like it or not. Efforts must be made to ensure that this body of water, this current chokehold on the Strait of Hormuz, can be somewhat eased. So it will be interesting to see what comes out of this meeting, where you are absolutely crucial in this, and as you said, the broader discussions about what will happen next. Now that we've been in this war for a good 3 weeks, it's not clear how much the Iranian missile stockpiles have been degraded and what their capacity is to continue attacking these countries around the region. No.